denial of permit requests, they'll point back to an FCC acceptable threshold for radiation levels. Everybody in this room needs to understand the FCC is staffed by former members of the telecommunications industry. They are effectively indemnified against adverse health impact lawsuits when the acceptable limits are higher than the limits actually shown to show harmful health effects. And I just want to dwell a little bit on some of those harmful health effects, if I could. Number one, we need to understand that we're all concerned about environmental impacts around PFAS and around lead in the water, all that kind of stuff. The health impacts associated with wireless radiation, when you actually read the laundry list of adverse health impacts, they're much more significant than even PFAS and what you see with the with lead in the water system. We're talking about carcinogenic effects due to tumors. We're talking about issues with DNA replication, which can lead to adverse issues in regard that part of the mechanism for leading to the carcinogenic effects, but also dealing with things, there's been ties to autism and other impacts as well on it, that I just encourage people to take a look at. This is, and that's why everybody's groaning, because when we're talking about 3-year-olds dealing with this, because the studies have also shown that the people most susceptible to these adverse health impacts are the youngest among us, because their blood-brain barrier has not been fully developed. That's why people are concerned about that. I know there's a convenience issue. I'm addicted to this stuff myself, right? This is an issue where I love the convenience of having wireless access. But I also know that in Article 4, Section 51 of our Michigan Constitution, our primary concern is supposed to be the health of our citizens. That is supposed to be the primary concern. And
Folks, we've done our best to respect your right to be heard. I'm going to ask you to respond in kind and be respectful of this process and not express yourselves one way or the other in that way. So thank you very much for the rest of the day. Hope I don't have to ask again.
Big game changer is that 5G will use much higher frequency bands than previously thought viable for mobile broadband and other applications. Such millimeter wave signals have physical properties that are both a limitation and a strength. They tend to travel best in narrow and straight lines, and they do not go through physical objects as well. But brilliant engineers have developed new antennas that can aim and amplify signals. Now, to make this work, the 5G build-out is going to be very infrastructure intensive, requiring massive deployment of small cells. I'm confident that the actions will lead to a cornucopia of unanticipated, innovative uses and will generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important, because it means that U.S. companies will be the first out of the gate. And that is why 5G is a national priority, and stay out of the way of technological development.
Some research I was doing on this composite map. This is the National High Resolution Reflectivity Composite Map. I was noticing some abnormalities coming out of Texas over here. I don't see it that much right now, but I do see it coming out of California, the Midwest, the Northeast, these star-like things that are moving in a 360-degree pattern. Sounds like they are preparing us for wireless electricity, guided surface waveguide probes, frequency division multiplexing for wireless power providers, detecting unauthorized consumption of electrical energy. And what is this one? Let's go down here. Site preparation for guided surface wave transmission in a lossy media. And as I was doing research, I saw this term lossy media a lot, because this is a media that they are trying to create to make their technology more conducive. So a lossy media, or a lossy medium, a medium in which a significant amount of the energy of a propagating electromagnetic wave is absorbed per unit distance traveled by the wave. So a lossy medium is what they need for their Tesla tower technology, right? To move these waves. So I did more research on this lossy medium, which they need, and we start looking and seeing words like aluminum and barium. And we come over here and we see words like ferrites, and ferrites are large family of oxides with remarkable electrical and magnetic properties. Okay? And then we come down here. Substituted hexaferrites belong to the M type with general formula MFE12019, where M is usually barium, strontium, calcium, or lead. So folks, sounds like we're hearing names that we have associated with chemtrails. Barium, aluminum, and strontium. Could it be, folks, that these chemtrails are out there to produce what's called a lossy medium, so that these waves are more effective and they can travel for longer distances for this technology? Is that one of the reasons why we've got these chemtrails and these clouds of nanoparticles of aluminum, barium, and strontium just sitting in our atmosphere?
The issue with 5G wireless deployment is not the convenience, because we all like the convenience. It's not the ease of deployment, because it's a lot easier just to pop something up on a tree than it is to actually bury it under the ground and route it to somebody's house in a hardware configuration. The issue is that 5G deployment, because it operates in a higher frequency band of 24 to 90 gigahertz, has to use a higher power density level to get through walls and get through solid objects. And that means you're going to have to put these things every 2 to 10 homes. So you're going to have a cell tower every 2 to 10 homes. Nobody would move next to a cell tower, right? So this is something that is a serious concern. And once again, remember that denial of request or denial of permit request that you can put in? It's going to point back to the acceptable levels as determined by the FCC, not the EPA or not the CDC, the ones who usually take care of health concerns, but by the FCC, which is staffed by former members of the telecommunication industry. That's the fox guarding the hen house. That was as a result of the 1996 Telecom Act. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. Sure, there are provisions in this bill that point to the idea of going off and measuring against acceptable health limits, but that's going to point back to the abnormally high FCC thresholds. And there's a chart in here. I'm really upset that I don't have my diagram in here because it would make it very clear, and I'll make sure that everybody on this committee gets access to this chart. We talk about the acceptable limits associated with radiation thresholds in this bandwidth, and the United States is orders of magnitude above what you see in many of the other civilized Western countries like Switzerland or France or even India and Israel as well. And so these acceptable limits are way out of whack with what you see in these other countries. Matter of fact, they've outlawed Wi-Fi access in schools and classrooms inside of Israel, out in France, and actually in California in some areas they've done this as well.